Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Thronebreaker, and last time we actually met up with Rivia, who, the leader of the dwarves. I was quite surprised by that. I thought it was going to be quite some time before we actually met him, but we did in fact encounter him and a monster or two that we helped fend off. Now, maybe it was a little bit easier than I was expecting, but I feel like that might be a bit of a false sense of security. We have to be kind of careful. I feel like perhaps future enemies, future encounters that we will run into may be quite a bit more difficult. So I don't think we can let our guard down just yet. So we'll carry on here, of course. We have also learned that there is a location we are looking to head over here for our main quest. It is much of the way. Okay, I mean, it's not all the way through, maybe halfway through the area. So I imagine we will run into many things before we actually get to this location, including but not limited to this battle and whatever else may be in between here and there. Still not a great sense as to what we might run into, because it sounds like, excuse me, can we pick this up? Can we not pick this up? It does appear as though that is the troll. It also really appears as though there's still some loot that we are, for whatever reason, unable to pick up in this location. So, okay. Okay. So, obviously, we fought what I believe was a troll last time around, as it would appear here, but still not entirely sure. Is it going to be more...
I've come to the conclusion your Elder-in-Chief is not fond of guests.
That kind of thing? Or something else?
Quarter of it. He hates them with seething passion. But you're damned lucky.
Why's that?
Let you in, didn't he? Mahakam was cordoned off completely from the outside world for many a long year. Clans finally forced Bruvia to at least let in peddlers and emissaries. Though he dragged his feet as long as he could.
Yeah, and so he may not exactly be all that friendly with us, but hey, maybe with a little bit more time and a few more opportunities, we may be able to change that. But also, the other thing is that in Lyria, we found that we were gaining what at the time we may not have realized. It's a whole lot of resources every time we picked up one of those little lootable areas. It went down a lot when we went into Edirn. I was hoping that as soon as we got out of Edirn and into Mahakam that suddenly the numbers would go back up every time we got some of the loot. But it has not been the case thus far. That is kind of concerning because there's a lot of stuff now that is available for us to purchase, and we may not be able to afford it for quite some time. Let's see, there may or may not be anything else over here. Dragon's Eye, that's totally not a daunting name. It seems as though this guy is ice fishing. Can we step on the ice, or are we about to, like, break through and die a brutal, painful death? Also, what is that? Do we know? It is just a point of interest. We don't really know much else. I think we should probably chat with this dude, though.
Quiet, wench. You'll scare the fish off.
I'm sorry, wow.
Crevens. Trout was already nipping at the bait. Then you came along and frightened it off.
Seems like perhaps Rivia is not the only one who is not so fond of guests.
Duval shice.
Sorry.
Duval shice.
Okay, not gonna lie, that is also just kind of hilarious. See, this is what I mean. Just a little bit of resources there, but really not much. A little bit worrisome. A little bit worrisome for our future prospects of purchasing upgrades, which some of which I think we can afford at the moment, but I believe, had some bigger ones we had our eyes set on. So what exactly is this? This looks like something. Is that a person buried in the ice? My queen. There are bodies of dwarven miners trapped beneath the ice sheet. That's exactly what it is. Likely swallowed by the river. It's too late for them now, but their equipment is recoverable. Though, bear in mind, should any fall in, they'd freeze to death in the blink of an eye. Ooh, so, do we say thanks, but no thanks? Or are we willing to sacrifice a couple of recruits, gain a little bit of coins, a little bit of wood, and a card fragment, which I think as soon as you see the card fragment, I think we know we have to do it, right? We have saved up a whole lot of recruits and not really spent any outside of maybe the occasional encounter like this. So I think of all the resources, perhaps at this point, because we've saved up so many of them, they are the most expendable. even if they are by many accounts the most difficult to get. trying to think of multiplayer Gwent, if I can recognize this card. That looks like a glass of some kind of beverage, the foamy top, from what I can tell. But I could definitely be wrong about that. Okay, there is a pathway over there, and even a signpost as well. Is that the primary direction? I mean, there's many directions we can go in here. Not entirely sure based on our map if we can go straight up here, or if we may need to loop around. Looks like we may need to loop around, but there is this option over to the left where there's this battle that we learned about previously, or we can go to the right where it is largely unknown. Looks like the battle is largely a dead end, and so maybe it makes sense to address this first and foremost. We are still on high morale. I'm actually surprised our morale didn't go down from that previous encounter. Seemed like that would have been the most likely of consequences. But I also get the feeling we're going to get a much, much better sense of the actual difficulty of encounters when we go over here. So I can tell you right off the bat that this is a Shaelmaar based on Witcher 3 encounters. And in The Witcher 3, they were very powerful. I thought that we heard in our encounter with Bruver that somebody referred to the troll as Shaelmaar, which is incorrect. So that was silly of them, first of all. But pretty sure I also double-checked in Gwent multiplayer just to verify, are they both even remotely related? And the answer is largely no. So that's an aside. My guess, this is going to be really tough. But only one way to know for certain. Oh, I guess beforehand. Sure. Get a tiny bit of additional resources because maybe we can buy some stuff to set ourselves up if this proves too difficult. But let's see what the deal is here. My guess is some kind of Shaelmaar, and that is the Shaelmaar card in Gwent multiplayer, so I think my suspicion is correct, especially because the name of this encounter is the Shaelmaar'S Lair. Elder Hoog once instructed his secretary, Gromek, to prepare a list of all the caves, caverns, and grottos in Mahakam. None ever learned why such information had become a priority for the Elder-in-Chief. Perhaps Bruver needed to record for a highly secretive task, or perhaps he had simply fallen into a sour mood and wished to bring the secretary down with him. In any case, the census of Mahakam's underground caverns was never completed, for Gromek had disappeared without a trace. None ever discovered his true fate, yet the bones that continue to pile up and gather dust at the threshold of Mahakam's darkest caves serve well enough to spark one's imagination. Yup. The Shaelmaar killed him, and this is a standard battle, so 2 rounds, no special rules, but I do imagine there will be some special cards that our opponent has that could complicate matters, so let's see what exactly we're getting ourselves into here. Okay, so before we start choosing cards, let's see what the deal is. Gigantic Shaelmaar. Every 2 turns on turn start, give a random unit 4 armor. On round end, units with armor gain resilience. Whoa! I was going to say, the armor by itself, perhaps not a huge deal, but giving resilience to every card with armor is scary, because that means that they can get a whole lot of carryover from round 1 into round 2. We may be able to get clever here, and I've noticed in the past from our standard battles, of which we've not had very many, but our opponent doesn't always have the best sense of when and when not to pass. And because this just says resilience, not permanent resilience, and I'm hoping that is accurate, that it is only going to be normal resilience, which means cards carry over from one round into the next round, but they can't carry over into the next round after that. That means that we may try to win round 1, and then they'll get a bunch of carryover going into round 2. We deliberately either don't play it all in round 2 or just play small stuff in round 2, and then by that point, hopefully they have few enough units with resilience that round 3 it's more or less an even match, because otherwise that's going to be pretty difficult for us to deal with all that resilience. Remind me, the Gesso Arbalest round start here on the battlefield. Obviously, we have that loyal damage random enemy by 2. That could be useful to deal with the armor, or at least help to get rid of some of the armor. It is 4. It'd be one thing if it was 2 armor, and then maybe, just a little poke of damage here or there could get rid of it, but 4 is enough that it does require a bit more of a full-blown commitment to take it out. So let's see here. It looks like damage is going to be key in that case. On one hand, damaging armor means we're not getting much value out of the damage. True. On the other hand, it means we get to prevent them from getting the resilience. So it's kind of you either go all in on one way or all in the other way. Do you try to deal so much damage that you remove all the armor, they have no resilience, that way you can push aggressively even in round 2? Or do you say, alright, we're going to try to win round 1, focus on boosting or other sources of value outside of damage so that we don't have our damage mitigated by their armor, and hopefully that means you can still win round 1 perhaps a little bit more easily, and then you do what I was saying before and perhaps deliberately either don't play or play very little in round 2, and that way all the cards that they played in round 1 that gained resilience don't carry over into round 3, and round 3 is more or less an even match, which may be the direction we want to go in. Let's just see what we have available to us. Bomber could help to get rid of some of that armor. Alistair's Thunder certainly could help as well. Stray Slinger could help. The Stray's Cavalry, I don't think this is going to be fast enough damage-wise to make that work. And the Alchemist, well, let's take it one step at a time. Let's get rid of the Stray's Cavalry, I think. Black Rayla, obviously one of, if not our best card, so always happy to see her. But if we could combine her with something like Savior, that would be even better still. Knickers we don't really want to have in hand because he can get summoned out from our deck, so let's get rid of him. Stray Slinger, I think, the combination of 2 Slingers gives us enough damage to remove that 4 points of armor. I mean, again, we don't know. That's the additional armor they're getting from their leader ability. There's a chance that their units have some armor to begin with, and that would make matters quite a bit more difficult. Skull, this may be our first really good opportunity to put this to use, because since this is a 3-round match, that means we'll have lots of units that we can have in our graveyard by the time round 3 rolls around, so that means lots of additional damage on Skulls, so this is definitely staying. And still, I really don't remember what we had happen to us when we used Bone Talisman last time, because it's been a little while at this point. Alchemist, I'm a little skeptical of. I don't know how much value we're going to get out of at least weakening them. We could combine it with Gascon, and that would mean that we would get another unit up to the same amount of power as Gascon, which could turn into something pretty significant, but that would mean we need to save you, and save you. We have a lot of cards that we'd perhaps like to save for round 3. That includes Skull, Gascon, Alchemist, if we're playing that with Gascon, that's 3, potentially Isbel, where after having taken more damage, she has more time to boost us, so that's 4. That means we have 6 cards we play in round 1. The Bomber, Slinger, Bone Talisman, Rayla, Alistair's Thunder, and the other Slinger. And that's... not loving that. Because, as they're saying, I don't really remember what we should expect from the Bone Talisman, or if it's entirely random. And... Rayla round 1 when we don't have a Xavier to go with her. I don't love that. What if we deliberately get rid of Gascon and we use Rayla to get Gascon later on, and we try to get a card that we can play earlier instead? Like, we can go double Stray's Bomber, 1 in the melee row, 1 in the range row, or 1 to set the range row on fire, 1 to set the melee row on fire. Because now that gives us more flexibility in terms of how many cards we're going to play in round 1. We can go deeper in round 1 if needed. So I think I like this better. And we still have at least some redraws remaining. So, okay. Let's see what they do here. It's Forktail. On deploy, consume the 3 lowest allies. It does start with armor, so that is going to make it a little bit difficult to prevent it from getting the resilience. Is it every unit? You have a single unit. Oh, thank goodness. I think for a second there I was thinking it was every unit gets 4 armor. That's just insane. But okay, a single unit gets the armor. So, fortunately, Scepter of Storms will definitely help with that, as will the Gesso Arbalest. So, we may not need to rush too much into damaging your armor, because at this point it might even be overkill if we were to say, go with leader ability. May make more sense to wait until they play another card, and then go that route. So I think we may start with the Strays Bomber. Obviously, the earlier we play this, the more time we have
I smell a reek.
to get some value out of that fire. So there is the additional armor going to the Forktail. Notably, they used that leader ability at the start of their turn, which may or may not be something they continue to do here, which at least on the first turn was significant, because that meant they were going with extra armor on the Forktail and the Forktail alone. So every unit that has armor gains resilience, though, right? Yeah. So at this point... Ooh. Harpies by default have armor. They not only do they not have armor by default, they also are not on the same amount of power as this Harpy. I was going to say, like, maybe you go Scepter of Storms, and then use Leader ability to hit the Harpies, and you get both of them simultaneously, but that's also not really going to work. Does make it kind of awkward. I mean, we can do another Strays Bomber in their melee row and potentially get rid of some armor there. But, I guess, again, the earlier the better. Something to be said for trying to save the fire for... Actually, I don't remember. In multiplayer, the row effects end at the end of the round, but, we just have so few encounters that actually last multiple rounds that I don't recall as whether the fire carries over. It actually may. Then... it might still be worth going leader ability here. I think we might be getting a little too clever if we try to delay it any more than that. We do get the random damage, hitting the Harpy Egg, which will spawn another Harpy. Unfortunate, but that was going to be a possibility. Oh, on turn and spawn one Harpy Egg. Oh, so it's kind of a never-ending thing. Unless... oh, this is going to... yeah, this one does it as well. So, yeah, it's going to make Scepter Storms really tough. Really tough to make that work. But I think... That really sinks. That is a hard counter on Scepter Storms. I think we do need to destroy this Harpy with Scepter Storms right now. Otherwise, it means more Harpy Eggs every turn, and that's just going to turn into a feedback loop. And the longer we let that last, the more of an issue it's going to cause. Okay, it is another Harpy. Oh, do they only do it once? Does it not? Okay, it doesn't reset every turn. Thank goodness. That's another instance where it helps us out a little bit. Now, technically, I guess it'd be great if we just didn't kill this Harpy Egg, but it's probably going to happen whether we'd like to or not, because the fire is going to take it out at one point eventually. The question is, if we do that, do we have enough damage to get rid of the Harpy that it spawns in before that starts spawning in more Harpy Eggs like we did on the previous turn? We did that fairly well. I'm realizing that Alchemist, if we're clever, we could potentially get some value out of that, setting something to 2 power. I mean, that's not a huge deal right now, but it is perhaps worth considering. It also, at least at the moment, they've not yet used any damage, so that was a bit of a risk sticking with Isabel. We may swap her out in round 2 or round 3 if it turns out that they just don't have any damage, so she's going to be 4-point body, which is not exactly all that useful for us. At this point, what we may want to do is go with the Stray Slinger and move these guys with armor and the Forktail. Obviously, again, we prefer not to destroy the Harpy Egg right now if we can. But how big is the Harpy that spawns in? It's 4. So if we were to deliberately destroy the Harpy Egg by targeting it with the Stray Slinger, it's a 4-point body that comes in. We can damage it by 2 with Scepter of Storms. And then there's a 33% chance the fire destroys it before it spawns in another Harpy Egg. I don't love those odds. I do not love those odds. So I think we still go with the initial plan of move you guys and just try to delay this Harpy Egg triggering. Except the fire does take it out. So, yep. Get more Harpies. This is just 100% Harpies. It might legitimately be 100% Harpies. So, I mean, again, this is the problem, is the more Harpy Eggs that spawn in, the more Scepter of Storms becomes a liability rather than a benefit. So I don't love that. But... Rayla, well, we use her to get probably Xavier. And then with Xavier, get more charges, and with that, eventually get Reynard. Oh, Gabor, remind me. Still relatively new. Damage unit by 10 if it was destroyed. Deal any remaining damage to another unit. That is nice. That actually could be really helpful for destroying a Harpy egg and then using the extra damage to get rid of the Harpy that it spawns in. Still a little bit of overkill damage in that case, but that's not out of the question. The other option would be play one trinket from our deck. We have all of our trinkets in our hand, so that's not all that useful in that it does precisely nothing for us. Gascon would obviously be nice, but we have not yet set him up as much as we can, so we'd like to wait for that. So... I think it probably is Rayla now, or... Yeah, I think it is Rayla. I think it is Rayla. That'll also summon out Knickers. So we just really need to win this round. What did you just eat, Knickers? Is it the necklace? Okay, so they passed, which means they're going to get carryover on anything that has armor. Right now, that's just this 7-point Harpy, which is something, but it's not amazing. We have 5 cards in our hand, which technically means we can play one more card here and still dry pass, meaning not play any cards in round 2. And that way we'll draw back up to 10 cards in round 3, and that's probably the ideal situation for us. The question then becomes, can we get rid of... I mean, I guess it doesn't make a huge difference if we get rid of it or not. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we played Rayla when we're now not gonna really get any value out of her does hurt me. But we'll probably deal with that. And have things like Skull setting us up for a big round 3. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... Or that's not going to go into a graveyard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units in our graveyard with Skull. I mean, 6 damage to everything in a row. Yeah, it was the talisman that Knickers ate. That also means value that we didn't really... Or additional points we didn't really need on this turn. This round, we would have preferred to have saved. So again, Knickers has backfired, surprisingly, fairly often whenever he does come out. But the timing just never quite works as we would like it to trigger. But what I'm wondering is, do we take a turn with Rayla, or in order to use Rayla, and maybe even get, where are you? Xavier out here. He has Zeal, so we can do all this stuff on the same turn. Give the charges to Rayla, and I think when we give Rayla charges, we can still use those immediately. We don't need to wait one more turn, in which case we can just fan out the cards that we don't like. Basically play the bad cards like probably the Cavalry. Get more Arbalest in our deck? What? How? You're supposed to start on the board. That's weird. Not sure why that is. I was going to say the Cavalry, but maybe the Arbalest in that case, since much of their value is supposed to come from starting on the board. So you do that, and then you have a higher probability of actually drawing into the cards that you want in round 3, and because Xavier is here entirely to set up Rayla, he's technically kind of a brick if we get him and him alone in round 3 without Rayla. So I think it actually may, crazy as it sounds, may make sense to use Rayla here, and with her, get Xavier, because otherwise he's not very helpful to us.
My pain serves a purpose.
Use him, give charges to Rayla, which yes, we can use immediately, and this means that having played more units in round 1, we'll have more in our graveyard, which means Skull's going to be bigger in round 3 when we opt to play that. Now we can technically also go Reynard, who technically also is kind of sort of a brick when we have already played Rayla. The thing with him is that he has 11-point body, which it's saying something, but we probably still go for it. And we're just going big time on Skull for round 3. That is very much what we're gonna focus on. So then you Savior again, and I'm wondering if we're gonna use Scepter Storms. It would potentially get rid of the eggs. Harpies don't have armor. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. We have a large enough lead here that the damage just is insignificant, and we're not going to risk giving them additional armor by doing that, so don't bother. Rayla. Again, the idea here is get the weakest cards out. Normally, I would say maybe the Arbalest, because that 2 damage when we use our loyal ability, when we use our leader ability, I mean, that's something, yes, but our leader ability does not proc all that often because we have the one that has the longest cooldown time, and most of the value from these comes from them starting on the board, and so I don't understand why they're in our deck. That's kind of weird, but I think, yeah, I think that might just be a little bit of a bug. For some reason they show up like that, in which case the preferred option would actually be the Cavalry, I believe, our weakest cards here, and then we can use them to get rid of the armor on that Harpy. So it's a little unconventional, the approach that we're taking here. Oh, we do still need to play one more unit here. We could go Alchemist, and we have a decent chance of drawing into Gascon, which, with more slingers, we could use to get one of our cards quite a bit bigger. But the Alchemist could also weaken one of their cards by setting it like this, Forktail down to a 2. And again, we very much do not need the points in this round, so we're very much just looking to play our weakest card. Is that the Alchemist? Is that the Slinger? Is it Isbel? Honestly, it might be Isbel. So we've not seen any damage at all from them yet. So, tell you what, I think we take this chance. Also, very unconventional. That could very easily come back to haunt us. But we've gotten rid of all their not all their resilience? How did that... When did that get armored? You can't use your leader ability when you've already passed. I don't think that had armor before. That's weird. Okay, they are technically going to get 2 points of resilience in that case. But we're going to pass and win round 1 by a whole lot. Oh, true. We have the resilience from Knickers as well, which I totally forgot about. So now, the thing is, they're going to be up at 10 cards. We're going to be at 7, which means we don't really want to play here. What we're trying to do is just set ourselves up for a stronger round 3, and that was why we played so many cards, was to make Skull that much bigger, because now with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 units in our graveyard. Playing Skull gives us 11 damage for all units in a row. Obviously, it does mean we want them to have most, if not all, their cards in the same row, but with more Stray Slingers, we can make sure that that happens. So that's going to be a pretty big deal. If they have Death Wish cards that spawn in other cards when they get destroyed, then that means Skull might not be able to quite literally get rid of everything, but should still be fairly close. So Alchemist is still probably the card that I'm most skeptical of in this encounter. There are certainly still some use cases for it, but I think we dump you, and that means that going into round 3, we are pretty much guaranteed to get, because remember, these Arbalists are technically not in our deck, it's these 3. So we are pretty much guaranteed to get Gascon, or at least the ability to mulligan into him. So let's finish the redrawing here. And I think what we do... Are there at 9 cards, not 10? But... yeah, I guess so. So, I think we probably still do pass here right off the bat. It does mean... Knickers doesn't have permanent resilience, does he? He has permanent resilience? Okay, I know I was bad-mouthing Knickers before, but that's actually huge. So we pass here. It's going to take them a few cards to catch up to us, probably. Ooh, Wolfpack, they do have some damage. Or Snow Wolf. Okay, sorry, it's not called Wolfpack in Thronebreaker. It's just barely enough for them to pass us here. They will get the resilience on those Snow Wolves, though. So, damage to a random enemy by 2. If it's under Biting Frost, damage it by 4 instead. Repeat this ability whenever... Hold on. Whenever a Snow Wolf ally appears. Okay. So... this will seem to be their theme now. They tricked us a little bit. In round 1, it was all about spawning additional units. In round 2, they suddenly broke out all this damage. So maybe Isabel, we took that risk that maybe she was going to be a total brick and just be a 4-point body because they weren't going to damage us at all. Doesn't appear to be the case anymore. But now what we're looking for is we have 2 redraws, and we have just Gascon in our deck. So we are guaranteed to get him if we would like. It's just a question of what do we want to get rid of to make space for him. Probably the Strays Cavalry. Either that or an Alchemist. But I'm hoping we can find a creative use for the Alchemist. Knickers is still fairly big, so we could use him to help boost ourselves up. And we could potentially use it to damage one of their cards. So I think there's still enough reasons to hold on to these guys. Okay, there is the White Frost, which apparently is going to make these guys stronger. Repeat this ability... Wait, hold on. Damage an enemy by 2. If it's under Biting Frost, damage it by 4 instead. So there is now Biting Frost, which every turn start, damage the lowest unit on this row by 2. So it's basically a more consistent fire. A more consistent, yeah, fire row effect. So... you've already done your thing. You've already spawned in your Harpy Egg. So that means if we were to destroy you, it's no big deal. We could use the Scepter Storms to get rid of you right now. Yes. It does mean that we get rid of their weakest card, which would be our best way of setting up the Alchemist to deal damage to them. Knickers is looking like he's going to start to take a fair bit of damage here, but what if we go Stray Slinger here, move all their cards, it will destroy you, it'll damage you, and it will start to reduce your armor. I'm not sure that's going to be a huge factor, but I think we do go that route. Oh, we also have... oh, before we do that, we do have a leader ability charge. Let's definitely use that when there are 2 11-powered cards on the board. Because then we're getting rid of all that armor. And what you want to do when your opponent has a row effect like this is you want to try to stack up as many cards as you can in the same row, because that way they're getting the value out of this row of Biting Frost, but they're not getting the value out of this row of Biting Frost. So that way we can kind of circumvent it to a minor extent. Okay, so we know their damage is going to get bigger when they have the Biting Frost here, and it is permanent, as I think it pretty much are all row effects in Thronebreaker, making them way stronger than they are in Gwent multiplayer. So these guys are becoming a bit of an issue, and we could Alzur's Thunder, get rid of you and you, which is kind of tempting. It's not quite full value out of Alzur's Thunder because it means that there isn't a unit on this side to also damage by 5, but I doubt they're going to play a card on this side anyway. And the quicker we get rid of these guys, the less damage they're going to have. Stacking up, and that damage is adding up very quickly. So I'm thinking we probably do want to go that route. And then I guess we can wait on Scepter Storms if they do play another Snow Wolf, and of course we'll have 11 power as well, and so if they have a bunch of them, that makes our leader ability more effective. They will keep on giving more armor, even if it's not going to translate into resilience. Okay, now they are back to spawning units. So... we may have weathered the storm a little bit with the Snow Wolves. Now what I'm wondering is... Harpy Egg... Harpy is 4 power. So if we do Scepter of Storms... That may be enough to get rid of both Harpy and the Harpy Egg. Obviously, that's 6 power. My only question there is, order of operations-wise, does it start spawning in the Harpy as soon as the Harpy Egg gets destroyed, and Scepter Storms can immediately then destroy the Harpy? Or does it do the rest of the damage before that Harpy gets spawned in, and instead it's going to start hitting this Harpy, which is not as meaningful? So, what if we go Stray Slinger first? That way we definitely get rid of the Harpy Egg, and that way we can definitely destroy the Harpy that it spawns in using Scepter Storms. I think we go that route.
Thing about slings, they hide well.
That'll get spawned in, use you, take you out so that you won't spawn in another Harpy Egg to try to shut down that potential powerful engine. Again, we're trying to stack our units in the same row if possible. And yeah, it's back to the Harpies for sure. And now, yeah, Snow Wolves may just not be dealing much of any damage at this stage. We would like, if we can, to stack as many of their units in the same row as possible to set up the skull. At this point, we may have even more units in our graveyard than we had previously. And at one point, we were thinking we'd use Alchemist to power up cards based on Knickers' power, but it's probably going to turn into Gascon based on how much Knickers has gotten damaged here. So I think once again, we're probably looking at what we did last turn, trying to find a way to destroy the Harpy Egg and the Harpy that spawns in. I'm not sure we can manage to do that on this turn, though, because I guess it's not urgent. We aren't about to accidentally damage you and destroy you. So we could still go Stray Slinger, move everything but the Harpy Egg to deal damage, and then we'd have enough damage remaining on Scepter Swords that we could poke you on our next turn to take you out and remove the Harpy that spawns in with this Scepter Storms once it has 2 charges remaining. So that's probably still the play.
Hey?
Like so. So Gascon will get bigger every time we do this movement, which is in large part why it makes more sense for him to be the target for us to use Alchemist on. What is the deal with the Slizzard? Every turn start, increase counter by 1, then damage random enemy by 2. Death Wish, multiply this unit's counter by 3, and damage unit by that amount. Ooh. That's tough. It deals damage, and we just don't want to get rid of it. Or if you do get rid of it, you want to get rid of it immediately. Which may be the route we're going to take here. If we go Skull now, then we can get rid of you immediately. And this Snow Wolf, which isn't doing much anymore. We'd like to set this up so there are more cards in this row to all get destroyed by Skull. That potentially would be something we could do if we take a little bit of time with the Stray Slinger to move all these guys into the range row, and then on our next turn, use Skull to take them all out. But if we do go that route, then Slizzard has one more turn to increase this counter, and that means one more turn for that Death Wish to become more powerful. So, is that worth it? It may honestly still be worth that, though, because Skull having enough damage to destroy basically all this stuff is probably more valuable than them getting 3 extra damage on this Slizzard ability. So, yeah, I think that is what it comes down to. I mean, this is still going to get destroyed, and it will spawn in a Harpy, but I think it is still warranted to go this route here. So it's going to be U3. What row does the Harpy get spawned in? Is it always the melee row? Or is it totally random? Well, now what we can do is oh, you are actually the lowest card, not you, so we cannot immediately destroy you. Oh, that complicates things a little bit. I may have assumed we were going to be able to destroy you. Drop you down to 1 power. Not that that's going to make much of a difference. You're going to get destroyed by the Skull on our next turn anyway, so yeah, I think we just saved the Scepter Storms. So yeah, that fired a little bit. They do have more snow wolves. Wow. Okay, so this is an interesting encounter for sure. We do have our leader ability back, which means we could hit both of the snow wolves at 11 power, or probably better yet would be use first our skull, then use leader ability to take out the harpy here and the harpy that this is going to spawn in, and then we can potentially use whatever is remaining to or use Scepter Storms to get rid of whatever is remaining. I think that's probably the plan. So just to double check, the skull is going to deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 points of damage, which is just enough to get rid of this snow wolf. So that sounds good, especially if they're about to get more snow wolves. Then these are going to continue to deal more damage. So yes, let's use skull now, and we are probably going to banish quite literally every unit that we have to maximize this damage. Again, that's 5 times 2 is 10, 11, 12, 13. Just double check. Damage all of them. Destroy all of them. They will spawn in a little bit more. There was the damage coming from the Slizzard, because that was going to deal damage on Deathblow. I think it might have destroyed a unit that had very little power remaining, so that's good. So now we can go leader ability to get rid of both of you, which means no more Harpy eggs, which is certainly a nice thing. Scepter Storms, does it make sense to use it now? The Snow Wolf will tank a little bit of damage with its armor. Obviously, we're not going to destroy the Snow Wolf right now. May make sense to save this and see what else we can get. I think that might be the best option for us. Yeah, I think so. It will get more armor from their leader ability. It's another Slizzard. This one we may just opt not to hit. Turn start. Increase counter by 1. Damage random enemy by 2. Yeah, I mean, it is going to continue to poke us for more damage, which is unfortunate, although... Between Scepter of Storms and, I guess, Gabor Zigrin left hook, we could destroy you on this turn. We would take 3 damage rather than, yeah, we'd absolutely take more damage if we left it on the board. And even if we don't kill it, just the 2 points of damage every turn is going to be worth more to them than the 3 points of damage they get once from us destroying it immediately. So I think that is still the play. So, yeah, probably Scepter Storms will drop it down to a 2, which means the 10 points of damage from Gabor are enough to finish it off. We'll have 8 remaining, which means we can deal what will amount to 2 damage on the Snow Wolf, because it's going to tank a whole lot with the armor, unfortunately. But I think that's still probably our best option here. So let's go for it.
I'm done in a jiffy.
So left hook. Oh, technically, could have done this first. I mean, it doesn't make a huge difference. Actually, this might be slightly better. We just get rid of you altogether. Damage is going to go on Knickers. That's kind of unfortunate. And then now we have the choice of either using the Scepter Storms and again hitting the Snow Wolf, which is just going to tank most of the damage with that armor, or we can wait it out and see if they play something smaller that we prefer damaging or getting rid of, which is probably the case. So I think we wait. It's another Snow Wolf. This one with considerably less armor. We don't really know which one Scepter Storms is going to hit. Obviously, we would prefer that it hit that one. But now what we are looking to do here is... It's a random unit that it damages. Random enemy unit. What we'd like to do is play Gascon in our melee row and use that. We're going to want him, what, all the way on the right? No. All the way on the left. Set a unit's power equal to the unit on its left. So we put Gascon all the way to the left, And that makes it so that we can bring other cards up to Gascon's power. Now, Gascon might be damaged a little bit from these Snow Wolves. There's a chance that Snow Wolves are possibly going to be able to destroy Knickers. So he's going to take 2 damage from the Biting Frost, which means if he gets hit by a single Snow Wolf, then he's definitely going down. But if we have enough time to keep Knickers alive, then that, obviously, the smaller the unit, we are setting up to 24 power, the more net points it's worth. But either way, it's going to be Gascon. Let's just triple check. Set a unit's power equal to the unit on its left, because we have messed this up before, and it has been very costly. So, equal to the unit on its left. We want the left unit to be most powerful, so we should play Gascon on the leftmost spot.
And just when you thought
Again,
things were about to get dull.
technically speaking, we would want to play him to the left of directly Knickers. That would be ideal, but because of the damage from the Biting Frost and the random damage from the Snow Wolf, we just don't know for certain. If we were to play him in between these two and Knickers gets destroyed, then suddenly it totally backfires. So that's why we need to play it safe here. Once again, we could Scepter of Storms. We don't really know which Snow Wolf it's going to hit. It might hit this one and give us little to no value. It might hit this one and give us at least a little bit more value. Are they going to play another Snow Wolf on their next turn? Maybe. Are they not? Who knows? They're going to play something better to damage? Possibly. But I guess we'd still wait. They are going to get more armor on this turn, I believe. Yeah, they put armor on the other Snow Wolf. Oh, dear. Assume the 3 lowest allies. Well, I mean, they got rid of all the armor, so actually, it does mean that we now have a better way to deal damage, and I bet this would have been catastrophic if they still had their Slizzards on the board, because if this counter had gotten higher up, and then they consumed all those Slizzards with the Forktail, this would have been astronomical damage. So, fortunately, we avoided that, because we predicted that getting rid of the Slizzards was going to be important. And as it turns out, Knickers did in fact survive. So it would have worked if we played Gascon next to Knickers, but as we said, risk that we couldn't afford to take. So now we're going to go with the Alchemist, and we're going to set
If anyone asks,
Gabor's
you've
power
not seen me.
to Gascon's power. We did it correctly, thankfully. And we should have played you in the melee row, because Knickers is going to get destroyed by Biting Frost, so we're not going to have a target for this next Alchemist. That was actually a pretty huge misplay. That might actually cost us the entire match. I'm going to be pretty mad if that costs us the entire match, because that was so avoidable, and we did everything else right, because that's why, because Knickers goes down, but we should still be fine here, because we are still in the lead, and we do still have the damage on Scepter of Storms, just to play it a little bit safe here. And the reason why I was concerned about that is because we go Alchemist, and I think we've established before, Alchemist cannot
There's been a mistake.
activate itself.
I'm no mage.
You know, we can't boost this Alchemist based on the Gabor Zigrid number. We don't really want to do this. Well, technically, I guess that's a net 2-point play. Okay, we can get 2 points
Greetings.
off of it,
What is it?
but we ideally would have played this Alchemist over here, and then we would have boosted based on Gabor Zigrid's number, bump this up to 24. That was the plan. But I forgot that Knickers was going to get destroyed, and so we needed to play Alchemist over there to fill in that spot to be the unit that gets targeted for the boost. But fortunately,
If anyone asks,
we have
You've
enough
not seen me.
margin for error here, and we will still get by. Unconventional approach, but it did work. All right. Ooh, and there's a chest behind as well. Let's check it out. We get some loot again. I'm not thrilled about the very low numbers that we are seeing from all this loot. It does look like we may be able to loot this as well. People of the Hills, we hereby order 5 barrels of cured beef, 40 links of juniper sausage, 5 sides of pork, 10 dozen goose eggs, 20 sacks of rye flour. Payment issued in gold. Warning, goods must be tightly packed so as to not attract monsters. Oh, something tells me that's where things went wrong. We bear no responsibility for accidents. Elder Vervenek of Clan Ferenc. Okay, and obviously, we have this as well. Curious to see what this will be. It's a new border. Congratulations. You can use this Avatar border in Gwent multiplayer. Looks like, based on the sigil that we just saw in the bottom right corner of that letter, that this is perhaps the Mahakam sigil, or just generally, affiliated with dwarves. So that's cool. Very different from what we've seen from our other vanities, as they call them in Gwent multiplayer, that we've gotten in the past. Those have tended to have been tied to Lyria, Rivia, and the other northern realms like Edirn. So to get something that is a little bit of a different theme is a nice pickup. But with that being said, I think this is probably a good place for us to wrap up here, as we encountered our first real, difficult, I guess you could say, encounter in Mahakam, or at least I suspect. The reason why I say that is I suspect the first one that we had with Bruber was kind of like a Mahakam tutorial in which we got off a little bit easy. And so this one, I think, is perhaps a better reflection of what we're going to find ourselves running into in the future in this area. But with that being said, this is a good place for us to wrap up here. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time.